When breathing becomes shallow, the voice often sounds tight, rushed, or unstable. Air runs out quickly, which causes people to push words out faster than intended. This is why someone who feels nervous during a conversation, presentation, or meeting may start speaking quickly, stumble over words, or rely heavily on filler sounds like and The brain is trying to keep up with the limited airflow and increased mental pressure. Learning to control breathing before speaking can dramatically improve clarity and confidence. Taking a slow breath through the nose allows the lungs to fill more completely and engages the diaphragm, the large muscle that supports stable breathing. When the diaphragm is active, the body produces a stronger and more steady stream of air. This airflow supports the voice, making speech sound fuller and more controlled. The exhale is just as important as the inhale. When you release air slowly through the mouth, it signals the parasympathetic nervous system to activate. This part of the nervous system is responsible for calming the body and reducing stress. As it activates, heart rate slows slightly, muscle tension decreases, and the brain becomes less reactive. In this calmer state, your thoughts become more organized, which allows words to come out in a smoother and more deliberate way. A simple technique many skilled speakers use is taking one slow breath before beginning a sentence or important point. This small pause does two things. First, it ensures that enough air is available to support the entire sentence. Second, it gives the brain a brief moment to structure the idea that is about to be expressed. The result is speech that sounds more intentional rather than rushed. Controlled breathing also helps regulate speaking pace. When someone speaks without paying attention to breath, they often rush through ideas because their brain senses that air is running out. By starting sentences with a full breath, the body feels no urgency to hurry. This naturally slows the rhythm of speech and allows each word to be pronounced more clearly. Another benefit of controlled breathing is vocal stability. When airflow is steady, the vocal cords vibrate more consistently, which creates a stronger and more confident-sounding voice. Instead of sounding shaky or strained, the voice carries a calm and grounded tone. Listeners tend to interpret this tone as confidence, even if the speaker still feels slightly nervous internally. Over time, practicing intentional breathing before speaking trains the nervous system to associate communication with calmness rather than stress. The brain learns that speaking does not require urgency or tension. As this pattern strengthens, clear and confident speech becomes easier and more automatic. The pace at which a person speaks has a powerful effect on how clearly their message is understood and how confident they appear to others. Many people develop the habit of speaking quickly, especially when they feel pressure to respond, explain something important, or avoid awkward silence. When the brain is slightly anxious or overstimulated, it tends to speed up the flow of thoughts. As a result, words begin to come out faster than the listener can comfortably process. This creates speech that sounds rushed, unclear, and sometimes difficult to follow. Speaking more slowly creates a noticeable shift in communication quality. When the pace of speech decreases slightly, the brain has more time to organize ideas and select the right words. Instead of reacting instantly, the speaker becomes more deliberate with each sentence. This extra moment of mental processing allows thoughts to form in a clearer structure, which naturally improves the flow of conversation. Listeners also benefit greatly from a slower speaking pace. Human attention works best when information is delivered in manageable segments. When someone talks too quickly, the listener's brain struggles to keep up with the incoming information. Even if the ideas are valuable, they can become harder to absorb. Slower speech gives the listener enough time to process meaning, connect ideas, and stay engaged in the conversation. Another important effect of slowing down speech is the perception of confidence. People who rush through their words often appear uncertain or nervous, even if they actually know what they are talking about. Rapid speech can give the impression that the speaker is trying to finish quickly or avoid being interrupted. On the other hand, someone who speaks at a measured pace appears calm and self-assured. The slower rhythm suggests that the speaker is comfortable with their thoughts and does not feel pressured to prove themselves immediately. Slowing down also improves pronunciation and articulation. When words are spoken too quickly, the mouth muscles do not have enough time to fully form each sound. This leads to slurred syllables or blended words that reduce clarity. A slightly slower pace allows the lips, tongue, and jaw to move more accurately, making each word easier to understand. One simple way to practice this skill is by consciously adding small spaces between phrases rather than trying to deliver long streams of speech. Instead of packing several ideas into one breath, the speaker allows short moments of separation between thoughts. These brief gaps give both the speaker and the listener time to process what has just been said. Reading aloud can also help train the brain to become comfortable with slower speech patterns. When reading slowly and clearly, the brain becomes more aware of pacing, rhythm, and word formation. Over time, this awareness transfers into everyday conversations. Another benefit of speaking more slowly is that it reduces the likelihood of using filler words. When people rush, their brains often insert sounds like or to fill the gaps between thoughts. A controlled pace gives the brain time to prepare the next phrase without relying on these fillers. Slower speech also allows tone and emphasis to develop more naturally. Important words can be stressed slightly, and meaningful pauses can highlight key ideas. This variation in rhythm keeps listeners interested and makes the message more memorable. As the brain becomes accustomed to this calmer speaking rhythm, communication starts to feel more controlled and less stressful. Thoughts flow with greater clarity, and each sentence carries more intention and precision. Silence plays a powerful role in communication, yet many people try to avoid it when they speak. In everyday conversations, presentations, or discussions, there is often a strong urge to fill every moment with words. This habit usually comes from a fear that silence might feel awkward or signal uncertainty. Because of this, people tend to rush from one sentence to another without giving themselves or their listeners a moment to pause. However, intentional pauses are one of the most effective ways to make speech clearer, more confident, and more impactful. When someone pauses briefly between ideas, it allows the brain to organize information more effectively. Speaking continuously without breaks places a heavy demand on cognitive processing. The brain must think, choose words, and control vocal output all at the same time. By introducing small moments of silence, the brain receives a short recovery period. During this time, it can quickly prepare the next thought, which results in more structured and meaningful sentences. Pauses also improve how listeners understand and remember information. Human attention naturally works in segments. When speech is delivered as a long, uninterrupted stream, the listener may struggle to separate one idea from another. A pause acts like a signal that one thought has ended and another is about to begin. This makes it easier for the listener's brain to process the message and keep track of the conversation. Another important aspect of pausing is the sense of confidence it creates. When a person is comfortable allowing small moments of silence while speaking, it communicates that they are not afraid of space in the conversation. This calmness suggests control and self-assurance. In contrast, someone who constantly fills silence with extra words or filler sounds may appear uncertain or anxious, even if their ideas are strong. Pauses also help reduce the use of filler words such as and like. These sounds often appear when the brain needs time to think, but the speaker feels uncomfortable being silent. Replacing filler words with short pauses is a simple yet powerful improvement. Instead of signaling hesitation, the silence appears thoughtful and intentional. The rhythm of speech also becomes more engaging when pauses are used correctly. Just as music relies on moments of silence between notes to create rhythm, speech becomes more dynamic when ideas are separated by brief breaks. This variation in pacing keeps the listener's attention and prevents the voice from sounding monotonous. Pauses can also emphasize important ideas. When a speaker stops briefly before or after a key statement, it naturally draws attention to that message. The listener becomes more alert, anticipating what will come next or reflecting on what was just said. This technique helps highlight the most meaningful parts of a conversation or presentation. Training the brain to feel comfortable with pauses takes practice. Many people initially feel that silence lasts longer than it actually does. In reality, even a 1 or 2 second pause can feel significant to the speaker while still sounding completely natural to the listener. Practicing this during conversations, storytelling, or reading aloud can gradually build comfort with this rhythm. As speakers become more comfortable with pauses, their speech begins to sound calmer and more deliberate. Thoughts are expressed with greater clarity because the mind has enough time to process each idea. The listener experiences the message in a more organized and engaging way, and the overall conversation feels more balanced and intentional. Clear speech depends heavily on how well a person articulates their words. Articulation refers to the precise movement of the lips, tongue, jaw, and vocal structures that shape sounds into understandable language. When these movements are small, rushed, or tense, words can blend together and become difficult to understand. Even if the ideas being shared are strong and meaningful, poor articulation can cause the message to lose its clarity. Many people develop the habit of speaking with minimal mouth movement. This often happens because they are trying to speak quickly or because they are not fully aware of how their speech sounds to others. When the lips barely open and the jaw remains tight, the sounds produced by the mouth become less distinct. Words start to merge together, and listeners must work harder to interpret what is being said. Improving articulation begins with becoming aware of how the mouth forms each sound. Every word requires a coordinated movement between different parts of the mouth. The lip shape sounds like P, B, and M. The tongue controls many consonants such as T, D, L, and N. The jaw helps create space for vowels and influences how clearly the voice resonates. When these movements are slightly exaggerated during practice, the brain becomes better at coordinating them during normal conversation. One effective method for developing stronger articulation is reading aloud slowly and clearly. When reading out loud, the speaker can focus on fully forming each word rather than rushing through sentences. This allows the brain to build stronger motor patterns for speech. Over time, these patterns become automatic, and everyday conversations begin to sound clearer without requiring conscious effort. Another useful approach involves paying attention to the ends of words. Many people unintentionally drop the final sounds of words, especially when speaking quickly. For example, a word ending in T, D, or S may become softer or disappear entirely. By intentionally finishing each word during practice, the overall clarity of speech improves significantly. Relaxation of the jaw and facial muscles also plays an important role. When people feel nervous or stressed, they often tighten their jaw without realizing it. This tension limits the range of movement needed for clear articulation. Taking a moment to relax the jaw and slightly open the mouth before speaking allows sounds to form more naturally. Practicing tongue twisters can also strengthen articulation. These phrases require precise and controlled mouth movements, which helps train the muscles involved in speech. When practiced slowly and accurately, they improve coordination between the tongue, lips, and breath. Clear articulation also affects how confident a speaker sounds. When words are pronounced fully and distinctly, listeners perceive the speaker as more deliberate and prepared. The message feels more intentional, and the listener does not need to guess what was said. This increases trust in the speaker's communication. Another benefit of strong articulation is improved vocal projection. When the mouth opens properly and words are formed clearly, sound waves travel more efficiently through the air. The voice becomes easier to hear and understand, even in environments with background noise. Over time, consistent articulation practice strengthens the neural pathways responsible for speech production. The brain learns to coordinate breathing, vocal vibration, and mouth movement in a more efficient way. As these patterns develop, speech begins to flow more smoothly, and words carry greater clarity and presence in conversations. The way a person holds their body has a direct influence on how their voice sounds and how confident they appear while speaking. Posture affects breathing, vocal strength, and even the mental state of the speaker. Many people do not realize that when they slouch or collapse their shoulders forward, they are physically limiting the ability of their lungs and diaphragm to function properly. This restriction can cause the voice to sound weaker, less stable, and sometimes less clear. When the body is upright and balanced, the chest remains open and the diaphragm can move freely. The diaphragm is the primary muscle responsible for breathing, and it plays an important role in supporting speech. When this muscle works efficiently, it allows the lungs to expand more fully and release air in a steady, controlled way. That steady airflow is what powers the voice. Without it, the voice may sound strained, breathy, or inconsistent. Slouching compresses the chest and shortens the space available for the lungs to expand. This forces the body to rely on shallow breathing from the upper chest rather than deeper diaphragmatic breathing. As a result, speakers often run out of air in the middle of sentences or feel the need to rush their words before the breath disappears. This pattern can make speech feel tense and hurried. An upright posture, whether sitting or standing, creates a more stable structure for the entire breathing and vocal system. When the spine is aligned and the shoulders are relaxed but open, the lungs have more room to fill with air. This allows the speaker to produce longer and more controlled sentences without strain. The voice naturally gains strength and clarity because it is supported by proper airflow. Posture also affects the resonance of the voice. When the chest and throat are open, sound vibrations travel more freely through the vocal tract. This creates a fuller and more resonant tone that carries more easily to listeners. A slouched posture, on the other hand, can compress the throat and reduce vocal resonance, making the voice sound quieter or less expressive. Another important aspect of posture is the psychological effect it has on the brain. Body position sends signals to the nervous system about how safe, alert, or confident a person feels. When someone stands or sits upright with their head level and shoulders relaxed, the brain often interprets this position as a sign of stability and readiness. This can reduce feelings of nervousness and increase a sense of control during communication. People who maintain open posture while speaking also appear more confident to others. Listeners often interpret body language subconsciously. A person who stands tall, keeps their shoulders back, and faces the listener directly tends to be perceived as more self-assured and trustworthy. Even before a word is spoken, posture can influence how the audience receives the message. Maintaining good posture does not mean becoming stiff or rigid. The body should remain relaxed and natural, with the weight evenly balanced and the shoulders loose. The goal is to create an open and stable position that supports comfortable breathing and vocal production. With regular awareness and practice, posture can become an automatic part of speaking habits. As the body learns to maintain alignment during conversations, presentations, or meetings, the voice gains more strength and stability. The combination of better breathing, stronger vocal support, and confident body language leads to speech that feels clearer, calmer, and more controlled. Clear and confident speaking becomes much easier when a person has a simple structure in mind before they begin talking. Many moments of confusion in speech occur because the brain is trying to generate ideas and express them at the same time. When thoughts are not organized, sentences may become scattered, and the speaker might jump between points without clear direction. This can lead to hesitation, filler words, or explanations that feel longer and less focused than intended. The human brain processes information more effectively when ideas follow a clear order. Taking a brief moment to mentally outline what you want to say allows the brain to arrange thoughts into a logical sequence. Even a few seconds of preparation can make a significant difference. Instead of searching for words while speaking, the mind already has a general path to follow. This mental organization reduces what scientists often describe as cognitive load. Cognitive load refers to the amount of mental effort required to perform a task. Speaking requires several processes at once, including forming ideas, choosing words, controlling breathing, and coordinating mouth movements. When thoughts are unstructured, the brain must work harder to manage all of these processes simultaneously. Creating a simple internal outline lowers this mental demand and allows speech to flow more smoothly. A helpful approach is to think in terms of key points rather than full sentences. When the brain holds 2 or 3 main ideas in mind, it becomes easier to explain them naturally. The speaker can focus on expressing one idea at a time instead of trying to remember an entire explanation word for word. This method also makes speech sound more conversational and less mechanical. Organizing thoughts before speaking also helps reduce the use of filler words. Sounds like and like often appear when the brain is searching for the next idea. If the general structure of the message is already clear, the speaker spends less time searching and more time delivering the message itself. This leads to communication that sounds more deliberate and confident. Another advantage of mental organization is that it improves the listener's understanding. When ideas are presented in a clear order, the listener can easily follow the flow of information. Each point builds on the previous one, creating a sense of direction in the conversation. Without this structure, listeners may become confused or lose track of the main message. Preparation also strengthens confidence because the brain feels more in control of the situation. Uncertainty about what to say often triggers nervousness. When the speaker has already mapped out the main ideas, there is less pressure to improvise under stress. This sense of preparedness allows the voice to sound calmer and more stable. Practicing this habit can begin with simple situations, such as briefly organizing thoughts before answering a question or explaining an idea. Over time, the brain becomes faster at forming these mental outlines. What once required conscious effort begins to happen automatically within seconds. As this skill develops, speech becomes clearer and more focused because each idea has a purpose and direction. The speaker no longer feels the need to wander through explanations in search of a point. Instead, thoughts move forward in a natural sequence, allowing communication to sound more confident, structured, and easy for others to understand. Speaking clearly and with confidence is not about having a perfect voice or using complex vocabulary. It is about developing a set of simple habits that allow your mind and body to work together while you communicate. When breathing is controlled, the nervous system becomes calmer and the voice gains stability. A steady breathing pattern supports longer and more relaxed sentences, which immediately improves how clearly ideas are delivered. Slowing down your speaking pace gives the brain the time it needs to organize thoughts and choose words more carefully. When speech is not rushed, listeners can process information more easily and remain engaged with what is being said. Pauses further strengthen communication by creating space between ideas, helping the listener absorb each point while also giving the speaker a moment to think ahead. Clear articulation ensures that every word is formed properly, allowing the message to reach the listener without confusion. Posture strengthens this process by supporting healthy breathing and vocal projection, which gives the voice more power and presence. When the body is aligned and relaxed, speech becomes stronger and more controlled. At the same time, organizing thoughts before speaking reduces mental pressure and keeps conversations focused. Instead of struggling to find words in the moment, the brain follows a simple structure that guides the flow of ideas. With practice, these habits become natural, allowing your voice to carry clarity, calmness, and confidence in any conversation.